everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. You know, when I listen to podcasts, they say, episode number, whatever it is. I have no friggin' clue what episode number this is. Dave, Fredo, do either one of you know?
We're in the 20s.
Oh, I think we're beyond 20. But anyway.
20s, yeah. This is 25.
This is the latest. This is the latest episode. Oh, 25. Right on. Well, that was the thing. First of all, everybody, welcome to this episode. Hope everybody's staying safe. Hope everybody's staying healthy and not going too nuts, and that your alcohol budget is not being totally blown out of the water. All I have to say is thank God for delivery service, and we visited Port Orleans a couple times for their curbside pickup. So yeah, shout out to those guys. Anyway, and that is why I run in the morning. I run because somebody asked me one time when I started running about 11 years ago, they said, "Are you training for a race?" I said, "No, I just want to drink beer and not get fat." So that was my whole goal. Pant size still the same, so I'll count it as a win. But joining me as always is Fredo and Dave, but we also have a very special guest today, and we'll give you more of a lengthy introduction later. But Chuck Lehman, who is I would say longtime listener, but we're only 25 episodes in. But he's a listener, and he reached out to us and has some cool things to say. But welcome, Chuck. So everybody say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So, no, I was thinking, we were talking before the podcast started. I am originally from Nebraska. I went to University of Nebraska for undergrad. Dave, his wife, is an FSU grad. Dave, by default, is an FSU fan, I suppose, right? And we're still friends. But he went to K-State, so it's really amazing that Dave and I are friends. Actually, I'll never forget being at your house. I'm like, "Kate, do you have a bottle opener?" She's like, "Yeah, there's that one on the table." And it was a Florida State one. When you use it, it plays a stupid Florida State song. Anyway, but Brittany and I were talking, because right before that we recorded this podcast, the 94 Orange Bowl, right, is on NBC. And it's Nebraska, Florida State, and it's one. And Brittany and I realized that we had been dating for exactly 1 year when that game was played, 26 years ago. So, yep. So there you go. I'm old. But no, it was kind of nice trip down memory lane. But Nebraska still lost. Darn it.
But Chuck is a Florida State fan to get to the roundabout.
Hey, and that was this great episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. Why don't you tune in next week when we'll have? Oh, no, just kidding.
Yeah, but you guys talk about how hard it would be to be friends, considering with the K-State Nebraska rivalry. My wife is actually I got multiple degrees from Florida State, and my wife I met her at grad school, but she actually did her undergraduate at University of Miami. So we live in a. Yeah. Oh no, it's fine. Well, it's harsh now. It was when we first started dating, like in 2010, maybe not 2010. Excuse me, like 2008. I think Florida State ran off like 7 wins in a row or something, and the loser or the winner always bought the loser like a special present after the game, and this and that, and it was all fun and games for 7 in a row. Now we've lost like 2 or 3, and it's not as fun anymore. But we don't even watch the game together. We go to different places. I'll either go to the game, or she'll go to the game, or go to a bar. Like, we don't watch in the same place because we can't pretend to like each other, be happy for the other person. It's hilarious.
And here's the thing is that I remember it was RG3's debut game with the Redskins when they played the Saints, and I was in Nebraska at the time, and I'm a huge Saints fan, and my band had a gig, and so my guitar player and I were watching. He's a big Washington fan. I'm a big Saints fan. We were watching that game on my mom's couch before this gig that we had to go to. And, it was, hey, cheer for your team. I'll cheer for my team. Just don't be a Jack McClunky to, the other person. You don't have to say, hey, that was a really good throw by Drew Brees. Just, don't laugh when he, and point when he gets sacked,
I think that works for pros, but when it comes to college, that's an argument on Twitter all the time, like, alumni versus like, fandom. I think there's something a little bit more emotional, like when it comes to colleges and like rivalries and things like that, that I think really drive a nail or can drive a wedge between people when they're trying to watch their sports.
And this is the Who Dat Jedi podcast, so we got to talk a little bit Who Dat stuff. Everybody, big elephant in the room, Jameis Winston. How do we feel?
I think
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a 1-year deal. You're not committing long-term, long money. Everything's gonna be so different next year. So, but for right now, it's a solid. Yeah.
I mean, it tells me they want to keep using Hill in that kind of tight end / receiver / quarterback role. So from that perspective, it makes sense.
Did you see at CBS, I think it was CBS Fantasy, Dave, that you can now draft Taysom Hill and play him in the tight end flex spot?
Yeah, I heard about that today.
Yeah.
As somebody that lived in Tampa for a while and was kind of a Bucks fan when they won their championship a while back, and the fact that there's a lot of Bucks people like on Twitter and stuff that I don't like, I enjoy the fact that he could go to New Orleans, possibly get things squared away, and then haunt them for the next decade. That would be pretty hilarious.
I think what what I guess what it seems like with people in New Orleans, there's that, of course, the unofficial motto of "be nice or leave," and I think really it's like we recognize this guy's bringing in a lot of baggage, but I think and we'll never forget that is there. But I think New Orleanians are willing to hey, it matters what you do now. It matters, how you behave now. So, he's so far, he's said the right things, That's
the thing that people always say about New Orleans is like, if you love it, New Orleans will love you back. I mean, as a professional athlete, that's very true. If you're, you mind your P's and Q's and you love the city and you can demonstrate that in your actions as well as your words, people are just going to fall in love with you. So,
well, I don't know if New Orleanians were getting ready to fall in love with Jameis Winston, but I think they're willing to.
They will. The second they see him eating a po' boy and talking about how much he loves everything here, and most things will be forgiven.
Look, he leads the Saints. Drew Brees goes down for any kind of way, and he steps in and leads the Saints to a overtime victory against the Falcons. People will forgive everything.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Winning solves everything. Yeah,
it is the ultimate solve. Yeah.
So, well, okay. Well, that's our big Saints news. I mean, we could talk about the draft, but I'm always just kind of ho-hum about the draft because it's like, how many people knew who Alvin Kamara was until he was on the field? To me, it doesn't matter if we drafted you in the first round or the 7th round. Again, it matters what you do on the field. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I don't know. Any thoughts draft wise?
It's going to be interesting. Just as a thought that they went and signed Jameis Winston. They signed Taysom Hill to a long deal, and then they wanted this kid in the 7th round. They
went and they buggered, the Panthers when they found out the Panthers wanted him. They're like, nope, we're going to trade up. I mean, that was a total.
They traded a 6th-round pick away to get Tommy Stevens, who looks to be the next Taysom Hill. That's the way it's being sold as. So I think that was the most interesting thing that happened after we traded everything from the 4th round onwards to get up and get a tight end. We just went, okay, we were interested in him. Oh, Panthers want him. Just go up and grab him. Because now you got 4 guys in the quarterback's room, and only one for 100%. Everybody's okay with being quarterback.
So yeah, well, like I said, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, there will be a season to play. Heard rumors that one of the things they're considering is starting in October, no bye weeks, and moving straight on into the postseason. I mean, right after that, so it'd be then I think late February when the Super Bowl would be, and that might be a little bit more reasonable. But who knows? I'm just living one day at a time here. But
yeah, agreed. I I don't see it happening, but
Me neither.
Yeah,
I mean, well,
it's going to be interesting. I mean,
rebellions are built on hope, Dave.
They're the terrorists. What are you talking about?
So anyway, all right, we'll move on from football because this is a Star Wars podcast. But we have the Who Dat part in there, and as always, let's start out with trivia. And Chuck is going to join our trivia game because he has no choice, and but we won't make him go first. How about that? So Fredo, I'm going to throw this one to you. By the way, I will ask myself a question. I don't cheat. You guys can see me on this video chat. I'm not looking at these beforehand. But Fredo, just the first one I looked at. What's the primary target of the Imperial walkers on Hoth?
okay, let's give people a moment to think about that scene, like those scenes. Think about the future villain from the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade saying it. It's the
Grandmeister Pycelle.
That's right. It's you're talking about the power generator of the rebel base.
Yep, that is it. That is it. Ding, ding, ding. I love the meme that was like, what if because the guy who was General Veers was in the Last Crusade. The guy who was Admiral Ozzel was Hitler in the Last Crusade. So they said, what if the Indiana Jones saga was just the dreams that Han Solo was having when he was frozen in carbonite?
It would explain a lot.
So, all right.
By the way, have you guys seen the bad lip reading of that sequence, Hostels on the Hill?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you have to see that one. It's not like super new. I think that it came out like 6 months ago, but yeah, you really have to watch that.
All right. Well, Dave, this is to you. Who makes the tactical blunder of dismissing Darth Vader's powers as, quote, sorcerer's ways?
Man, I don't know that guy's name.
This is a tough one, actually.
Yeah, I don't know his name. I'll guess Admiral. I don't know. I have no idea.
Starts with an M.
Off.
Moff.
It was Admiral Mahdi. Admiral Mahdi.
Mahdi, yeah. I've heard the name, yes.
And all right, so go on to Chuck here. Who claims to be more powerful than the Chancellor?
Oh, Anakin does.
Yeah, Anakin Skywalker. Or they said Darth Vader, which I wouldn't accept Darth Vader because he wasn't Darth Vader yet when he said
I agree.
that.
Yeah.
But anyway. So, I got to ask myself one. Okay, so who assumes Count Dooku, or who assures Count Dooku Qui-Gon Jinn would never join you? All right, well, that was Obi-Wan. Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. All right. And it's interesting that those last two are kind of linked, and it will lead. It's a nice little segue into. We haven't talked about the Clone Wars recently. The most recent episodes, the Siege of Mandalore arc is in full swing. 2 more episodes left. One comes out tomorrow. The next one comes out actually just 3 days later on May the 4th. So what do we think so far of the Siege of Mandalore? And Chuck, you want to start off? You were really excited to talk about this.
Oh, I am. I do. I like the Clone Wars and Rebels. I think that's my favorite of the non-novels. I think that's my favorite non-original trilogy Star Wars, actually. Or these two animated series. I was really interested. I think obviously like Maul is an interesting character. I think you guys talked about it before. Like of the most interesting like unused characters or underused characters, like Maul like has to rank up there. Like in sort of like science fiction, whatever kind of like kind of history. He had the screen time. You're like, oh, well, what's he about? So it's really neat to see that whole trajectory from him with well, obviously here in the Clone Wars and then again in Rebels. I was sitting there watching it last week, and on pins and needles, like when he captured, because he knows so much about the plan, Palpatine's plan. When he captured the one soldier, and he was meeting with Ahsoka there, I thought for sure that we were going to get an Order 66, and they were going to watch the soldier like shoot, try to fight, all of a sudden like turn on Ahsoka, and it was going to be like this really weird way to viewing of what Order 66 looked like, and then it didn't happen. So I was like, that was really really strange, but. No, I love. I mean, as a fanboy, I love getting into the sort of deep cuts and like what's really going on elsewhere in the universe. Like, and I think it's gonna be cool because, like, for all intents and purposes, from what I understand, the episode, on Monday is essentially going to end with like the battle that over Coruscant. So, I mean, that's just really neat to fill in all those gaps and paint, such a cool backstory to what we see in the prequels.
So, I actually, it's interesting you say that about Maul because I was actually thinking, I was watching their most recent episode, like a third time, I think. And I was like, man, they have really made a throwaway character into one of the most intriguing Star Wars characters ever created.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really, he had moments of screen time.
He was Odd Job.
Yeah, in Phantom Menace, it was a great fight scene, one of the best lightsaber duels. But then he was dead, and it was just thrown away. But they really made him into one of the most, like I said, just complex and just interesting characters in the Star Wars lore. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Fredo, Dave, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. He what kind of struck me was like this is the fulfillment of what they've been teasing in all the trailers and everything. It's like this is the meat and potatoes of the story that we've wanted to see, and we're finally getting to see it. And so for that, I'm just like giddy watching this every week. I liked a whole lot of this, but I think what I liked the most was that I didn't expect it to be kind of running concurrent to the Sith. And like at one point they allude to Anakin's like mission to spy on the Chancellor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, that's 25 minutes into the runtime of Revenge of the Sith. And so I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, they're gonna take us right up to Order 66, aren't they?
Yeah, they said that he killed Dooku, and that was when I was like, "Oh wow!" And then they talked about I was like, "Holy moly! Yeah, we're in Revenge of the Sith timeline right now. It's crazy."
Right, because the first episode has you live the actual moment. Because if you remember in Rebels, Ahsoka mentions that the last time she ever saw Anakin was him running off to save the Chancellor. So they give you that moment in that first episode of the arc, and then in the second episode, not only does Obi-Wan tell you, okay, we're past the Battle of Coruscant, he's on his way to go deal with Grievous on Utapau, and Anakin's on his way to go has to go spy on the Chancellor, which he's telling Ahsoka Anakin's kind of having some issues. So we're all about a good third of the way into Revenge of the Sith time. So, which tells me between what happened, what Obi-Wan's telling him, and what we're seeing from the episode, we're definitely going to live through Order 66.
Sorry, Fredo. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The coolest part of this most recent episode is the conversation between the long dialogue that Maul and Ahsoka is having, and it's almost exactly like the scene in All the President's Men where where Bob Woodward is talking with Deep Throat, and Bob Woodward is just on the surface, and Mark Felt is like, you're missing the bigger picture. You know, Bob Woodward is just focused on on the surface stuff, all the who got what, who did what, and this, and there's a deeper story. And Maul is like, it shows how naive Ahsoka still is,
Mhm.
and how just tragically, I guess what ruined Maul is. By the way,
Yeah,
did you pick up on the line where he's rallying the Mandalorians, and he said, it's not the way of your people to be stuck down here in the gutters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just like, those brilliant writing, guys. It's like, after we just
Maloney.
watched The Mandalorian, this is the way. We've got to hide in the sewers. He said, it's not the way for you. But I will say, I've heard a lot of people digesting this. I'm going to throw this to all of you. When they've been digesting this last episode, The Phantom Apprentice, and they're all saying that, oh yeah, Maul, because they saw The Phantom Menace and then they're like, The Phantom Apprentice. Yes, Maul's the Phantom Apprentice. That's what I keep hearing. I'm like, no, he says
Nope.
it's Anakin. Anakin is the Phantom Apprentice. So even all these people who are prognosticating, they're only getting just the surface. There's a lot deeper stuff that's going on in these episodes.
You could even make the argument that if you wanted to, that Ahsoka's the Phantom Apprentice, because he's basically trying to recruit her, and what ultimately causes her to not go for it is what he says is about Anakin, and it's her devotion to him. And I found that really interesting because, like, again, you talked about how she's naive still to the ways of the world at this point. She couldn't believe that her former master would be capable of what he's about to do. And it's just heartbreaking. You talk about that novel from a certain point of view. We've mentioned that novel on this podcast a couple of times, and it's like we're living that now. Like, this is those events from Revenge of the Sith. We're seeing them through Ahsoka's eyes, and it's just crushing.
No, I think what's so difficult for him to get is the one piece that Maul refuses to give, which is he tells her it's Darth Sidious, and I love the delivery that Sam Woodward did for that line. The little kind of catch his breath in between the words Darth and Sidious. It's almost like he still remembers what he did to him, because he does. But the one thing, the key is, he's not letting them know the final piece, which is that Sidious is Palpatine. If they knew that, everything comes into full view, and they'd be able to respond to it. But they can't. They don't know that, so therefore they're caught, trapped, chasing after ghosts, so to speak.
Well, Maul, he obviously wants to screw over the Chancellor, screw over Sidious, but he sees the opportunity. He even says it out loud, that they're going to be able to operate within the chaos that is coming. So, and that's, you see the crime syndicate, having their virtual huddle there, and little Dryden Voss in there. That was kind of nifty. But no, and I actually like, and I wouldn't be opposed. I really like the Certain Point of View novel, or the book. I loved how that was all put together. I love how these episodes are going, because it gives you. It's why I never really liked the EU growing up, because it was outside of the world that I knew. And so, but here you always have that, oh, okay, Obi-Wan's off to go get Grievous, and so it anchors you into
something
knowing
known.
knowing what that story is. And so I love how these are playing off one another, and they've really saved their best writing, their best animation for these last few episodes. So
It's gonna really bother me. I realize, like, as you guys were talking about it, like, I'm like, oh, it leads right up into the beginning of Sith. I'm like, oh, no, we jumped past it. And like, I feel silly that I was talking. I forgot the whole he killed.
Grievous.
No,
Oh, no,
no,
you
no.
know,
He
you know what you
Grievous
meant,
and
though.
he had killed Dooku and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, it's like I didn't even watch that episode. No.
What's
So-
the thing? They're cramming a lot. They are cramming a lot into these episodes.
But
It makes you mad that they
doesn't
had
feel
those
like it,
filler
though.
episodes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
It makes you mad that like they kind of wasted about 2 or 3 episodes with some like that whole Ahsoka's journey. I mean, I understand they needed to kind of get her involved and whatever, but and like what is she up to? But that was far less interesting. I mean, I was okay with the finding Echo because you learned more about like how Anakin. We talked about, or you guys talked about how Anakin. You can see the sort of transition. And then you have that, and then you had that whole the arc with her and the Spice, and I just wasn't into it. But now you get to the Siege of Mandalore stuff, and it's really, really good, and it's really interesting. It's like I just wish there was more in the middle there, meat and potatoes wise, for the season. I think it was a little uneven, is all I'm getting at so far.
So it's not. This is not spoil. This is not spoiler. This is Aaron's prognostication here, and I kind of shared it with Dave and Fredo in our Twitter message. But my because we have Order 66 is going to come up, and we know that Rex said in Rebels, we didn't turn on our Jedi, and we know Ahsoka is going to get out of this, obviously, and that Rex didn't kill any Jedi. My theory is because Rex is by Ahsoka's side now, and the Order 66 is going to come down, but there ain't no Jedi for him or any of the clones around Ahsoka to take out because Ahsoka is not a Jedi anymore. And it makes more powerful that line in Rebels, I am no Jedi, she says to Vader. If they've made it clear in even the last episode, Ahsoka's not part of the Jedi Order anymore. Maul says, you left. And she said, yeah, on my own terms. And Obi-Wan says she's not a part of the Grand Army of the Republic. So I'm thinking that's going to be the hitch and the giddy up to Sidious's plan, is all the clones are going to be like, oh, we don't have a Jedi to kill. What the heck? They're going to see what's going on throughout the universe. And that's what's going to make them go, Fives was right. And they're going to take out their chip. That's my thought.
Yeah,
Shoot me down.
Yeah,
Come on.
no. The only way I can shoot it down is, and I kind of made mention to it in I want to say it was one of the comic books. I forget which one. The renegade Jedi or a Jedi master was running away, gets cornered by the Inquisitors and the first generation of Purge troopers. And what he does is he kind of uses the Jedi mind trick to make the Purge troopers go execute Order 66, and they turn on the Inquisitors because they're for former Jedi. That's canon. So, and he uses the confusion in that moment to disappear. Actually, I think that's what killed the 10th brother. So, that being said, it wouldn't surprise me if it plays the way you're saying it, because there has to be a mechanism for Rex and for Ahsoka to get out of this. That said, that the emotional gut punch of all those clones wearing Ahsoka's markings on their helmets, turning on her, will just hit the fan base, right in the middle of the solar plexus. I can't imagine Dave Filoni is going to go, no, I'm not going to let them, feel this.
I think it's going to be more of a gut punch to Rex. I don't, like I said, I still don't think that the clones with Ahsoka are going to do anything. I think they're going to get out of this kind of scot-free. And they're going to see what's going on. Rex is going to see, hear the reports of clones turning on Jedi, because, and there's the line that Anakin says to Ahsoka a couple episodes back that, loyalty means everything to the clones. They're setting that up. So yeah, I don't know. Chuck, what do you think?
No, I was going to say, my gut feeling, before you got to think of all the canon, right? And I'm just trying to think in my head. I'm like, Ahsoka doesn't know that Anakin turns into Darth Vader. So even if like they find out that there's a Darth Vader, saying on Monday's episode, she's not going to know who it is, or if she hears of him, those kinds of things. She doesn't find out until obviously years later in Rebels. So I think, like I said, I thought that when Maul had the one trooper in the throne room or whatever with him, he was going to turn on him then. So yeah, I definitely can see an entire like a battalion, an army, all turning against her. Now I think some of them already took. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some of these guys already took their chips out, right? It wasn't just. Was it just Fives that has his chips out, or did anybody else take their chips out already? Like, could you see something like Rex and Ahsoka like firing their way out, like, and they have to kill their own brothers, like, in order to escape, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, like I said, that's when I started thinking Dave Filoni loves those emotional moments. He loves giving you both the highs, the high highs and the low lows. So we're about to hit one of the lowest of the lows. Can't imagine he decided to bring all this back just to go, okay, now I'm gonna skip out on this.
No, it's gonna be pretty. It's gonna
I
be
mean,
adult, like, and I don't mean like graphic, but I think it's gonna be adult, like emotionally, definitely.
we're gonna get to relive people like Plo Koon and and everybody and Kiadi Mundi just getting gunned down.
I think so.
The subjugation of Mandalore too is where we're gonna end up, and that's probably kind of the undersold bit of all of this. Like how's that gonna unfold? I mean, I think we have a general idea. Empire will never leave. They've already landed on the planet and have kind of bent the people to their will at this point. They're just going to reinforce, but what's going to happen to somebody like Bo-Katan and some of these other characters?
So I was wondering, the Mandalorians who follow Maul, many of them have the horns on their helmets.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Fast forward to the armorer in The Mandalorian. She has horns on her helmet. Mm-hmm. Are we going to eventually, either in The Mandalorian season 2 or whatever, or maybe in these last couple episodes, are we going to see, because the Mandalorians at some point also they kind of go underground. Some of them stay loyal to the Empire, but some are going to. I don't know. I think the connections are still going to be coming. So
yeah, one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick is that I love that we finally get the merging of the two Mauls. You got Ray Park doing all the mocap faction fighting scene, and then Sam doing all the voice acting and all the performance. And it was interesting watching how they brought them both together for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, that was totally Ray Park in mocap, right?
Yes.
It was obvious.
Oh yeah.
And it was incredible. It was acrobatic and fantastic watching him and Ahsoka duel, because they were using actual actors.
Yeah, there was somebody for Ahsoka as well, and she was awesome. Yeah.
Wasn't Rosario Dawson though, was it?
No.
Probably not.
So one of the coolest things I heard, and a shout out to the Star Wars Underworld podcast. They're the guests that they had on when they were talking about this most recent episode. You heard the whole everybody. I guess Freddie Prinze Jr. has talked about it, and other people talk about comparing Maul to Sisyphus.
Mm-hmm.
And her point was that she said we literally had that in this episode. Maul climbed all the way to the highest point on Mandalore and busted out the ceiling, was getting ready to escape, and got literally knocked down to the bottom. So they actually showed that, right in front of us. It wasn't just implied, and I just thought that was really kind of cool. They're putting a lot of thought into this. So
and what I found so dramatic is how quickly he was okay with dumping the Mandalorians over the side. Like that moment when Gar Saxon is like asking for reinforcement for help. He's like, nope, go ahead, that well.
Yeah.
You've done your role. Bye.
So yeah, so okay, well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's episode and Monday's episode, and which brings us to Monday as a very well. First of all, Monday is a very special day, but tomorrow is a very special day. Tomorrow is 501st day. So as a member of the 501st, I have a standard picture. You're supposed to have a picture taken of you in your armor next to a clock when it strikes 501, but I have a standard picture of me in my stormtrooper armor with a stormtrooper clock at 501. So that'll be my profile picture for tomorrow. But yeah, it's 501st day on tomorrow. But Monday is and by the way, I'm sorry, let's back up just a second. A little sad moment. Today is a year ago today that we lost Peter Mayhew. Yeah, a little raise a glass to the Wookiee roars. Like I said, the coolest thing, I got his autograph 3 weeks before he passed, and that's still just very special to me. But Friday is May the 4th, and one of the best May the 4ths that I ever spent was here in New Orleans. Went to Finn McCool's, and they had blue milk and some concoction that they came up with, and it actually tasted really, really good. So I don't know. So what are you guys going to do anything special for May the 4th? I'm probably just, I don't know, Brittany and I will probably just watch, maybe pick a couple Star Wars movies to watch. But what are you going to do? Anything?
We'll definitely check out the Rebels finale, and then also Rise of Skywalker will be released on Monday as well on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Yeah, Disney Plus is going, and it's going to be like the big day. For May the 4th it's a big day. You have Clone Wars finale. You have all 9 of the Star Wars Skywalker saga movies finally on Disney Plus, and you have the Mandalorian behind-the-scenes documentary series dropping.
Which of all that's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
I haven't seen Rise of Skywalker since the theaters, so I've been holding out. So I'll watch it again and maybe and enjoy it a little bit more this go around.
That happened to me because I hadn't watched it since it was in the theater, and I only saw it twice in the theater. And then when it came out on digital, I got it and I watched it, and I enjoyed it. The things that bothered me still kind of bothered me. It didn't bother me as much, but I still enjoyed it. So, yep. Dave, are you and the kids doing anything special for May the 4th?
Yeah, probably not. Probably going to disappoint you all and do something that's not Star Wars related at all. But Fredo did pass along a interesting link earlier that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because as we know, May the 4th is also a big time day for consumerism.
Merchandising. Come on. In the words of yogurt.
Yeah.
Yogurt. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. The kids love it.
So look those things over and see if I want to purchase anything.
Well, that's what I wanted to, just there. If you go to StarWars.com, they have a whole list of all the specials that are on May the 4th. I won't go what each special is, but I mean, I'll list off the companies. Acme Archives, seeing 25% off. Best Buy has something. Cakeworthy, whatever the heck that is, looks like shirts. Chaser looks like more shirts. Creative Apparel. Disney Lucasfilm Press has a special. Entertainment Earth is always a good one. Fan Wraps, whatever that is. Fathead, okay. GameStop, that's a special. Hannah Anderson, okay. I don't know what Hannah Anderson is, but anyway, Her Universe, which is Ashley Eckstein's clothing line. She's the voice of Ahsoka Tano. They've got a thing going on. Hot Topic, and there's many more. And I'm going to stop here with Lego.
Woo-hoo.
And because I think it's a good time to merge into the meat of this episode and have our special guest talk a little bit more about this. And so I said I'd give the big introduction. So our special guest today is Chuck Lehman, and he is a friend of the program. He said he's been listening, like I said, longtime listener, all 20 some episodes of it. And a collector of Star Wars Legos. He has about 120 sets, 95 of which are ships, meaning he has about 90% of all the ship sets in his collection. He also has non-Star Wars collection of over 50,000 bricks. Did you actually count this?
So I did a little bit of an estimate, and it might be more than that. But
let me finish I'll finish your intro here in a second. But I will say there was one time when I started kind of doing an inventory of my collection, and then I started doing some math, and I stopped about a quarter of the way through because I started getting sad. He has been collecting and curating since 2016. It's holy cap! You've gotten a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, dude. And has navigated all the various back channels and potential pitfalls people can encounter. Oh, we're going to hear about Lego Black Market. All right, so let's welcome Chuck to the episode here, and I guess I'll start it off and then I'll throw it over to Dave here, but we have just kind of a standard question for anybody who joins us. How did your Star Wars fandom start? It didn't start in 2016.
Oh, no, not at all. So my earliest Star Wars memory, and I was a pretty precocious, little kid, and it was 83. I think I was probably 2.5. And I remember it as they took me. My parents remember it as we went to something else. But I remember walking. I was already a Star Wars fan, and I was already my mom was already buying all the toys at J.C. Penney's and Sears and all that stuff because you used to buy your toys there, right? So I had tons of stuff already. And then Return of the Jedi came out, and obviously I wanted to see it. I was 2.5 years old and whatever. And they say they didn't take me, obviously, but we were at the movie theater, and I walked in the movie theater. Maybe it was my dad just being like, "Oh, let's go take a sneak peek," and like Jabba the Hutt was on the screen, and as they tell it, like I basically screamed bloody murder and cried and ran out the door at 2.5 years old because Jabba the Hutt is terrifying at 2.5 years old on a big screen, at a movie theater. And so I remember going home, and I know there's pictures, so I remember this like through the pictures. I got the Ewok Village, I think, for my birthday there that September and all that stuff. And then it came out eventually, the movie comes out on VHS or something like that. And I remember my parents were like, "Oh, you're not ready. And there was a neighbor that was like a couple years older, and he had it on VHS. And at 3 years old, I mean, I'm laughing. I'm like, I think he came over and played it for me, but he played it for me. And I remember sitting downstairs in the basement watching it at 3 years old, or probably at that point, like a little bit older than 3, maybe 3.5. And, went through the Jabba part wasn't scary, and then when the Emperor started, shock killing Luke, that was basically the most terrifying thing in my life, and I was like scarred forever. But that was it. I was hooked. I mean, I thought Star Wars was the coolest thing, and my mom was she was always like kind of a really frugal, and I think in a weird way, my whole Star Wars collecting is probably somehow like genetically tied to her ability. She would go and find like all the Kenner toys and stuff on sale, and she would buy multiples of them. And like she would give me one but keep one in the box and like this and that. And long story short, time goes on. I thought I was going to get over a teacher like when I was in 6th grade, and I had to do like a video book report. So I'm like, I'm going to read Star Wars by George Lucas and like do a book report on it because that means I didn't have to do the friggin' work, right? And so, but as part of the video book report, I did stop motion. I did like the stop motion, filming of different scenes. I'd be like, cut away to this, and like I would show the scene and talk over it. And in the process of doing that, I burned and melted and used fireworks and destroyed a good chunk of my collection in the name of art and 6th grade video book reports. And then so she's just like, let's go up in the attic. And again, credit to her, 13 years she kept this stuff, and she brought it from Ohio down to Florida, and we went up in the attic. And I mean, there were boxes and boxes of like original Star Wars toys. And somehow 13-year-old me convinced her to let me open them up. And again, in hindsight, not the smartest move, but I did. And I had, I mean, you name it, you name the toy I had. I think there was a brand new AT-AT, the one that like the little light, the light guns would like shoot when you pull the trigger. I mean, I had tons and tons of stuff in there, and I played with it like probably a little old. I don't know if how many kids are still playing with action figures at 13, 14, but I played with it. And then, later in college, at some point, you have to, beer money or something. I sold it and pawned it and did all sorts of stuff. Like, because you're like, poor in college, and sold all the Star Wars stuff. She was really kind of pissed. So I have a little bit left, and then I've let my kids play with it, and they've essentially broke half of what's left. I was showing Aaron before the stuff that's still in the closet. I still have some pretty cool stuff and some pretty relatively rare stuff. Seeing, I can see Aaron behind me, him behind him, his collection. Not nearly as impressive. It's a cardboard box in the closet, but so that's Star Wars for me. It's always been about the story, and literally, it's like one of my earliest childhood memories is playing with Star Wars toys and seeing Star Wars movies, and that was it. That's been my
I'm
vice, or whatever you want to say, like, kind of thing. For
I'm,
most of my
I'm
life.
guessing I'm guessing at age 13 or 14, it was that same friend who brought over Return of the Jedi that brought over an R-rated movie for you to see real interesting stuff. So.
No, this was a much different time. Oh no, by 13, yeah, I had
We
seen
don't
my
have to get
share of
into that.
R-rated movies at that point. Yeah, but I get your point. Yeah.
That was like maybe like Die Hard in movies like that when I was 12 years old. But so how did you get from collecting action figures and stuff to transitioning that into Legos?
So, again, my mom. I remember I went to New York in third grade. I'd already like had some Legos, but I mean, I really wasn't into the building and stuff. And I went to FAO Schwartz in New York City. And like, if you've ever been there at the time, I mean, Lego was like, so this is what, like 86, something like that. They had huge Lego displays, like big, huge thing. Lego World didn't exist and all that stuff. So like, but they used to have this stuff inside the toy stores, and they literally had like every Lego thing that was ever made. My aunt was like, "Why don't you pick something out?" And I picked out like a plane, and this is before they had licensing deals for any of this stuff. And I think I got a plane and a truck and some other stuff. And I just thought it was like the coolest stuff. And then my mom, looking to try to find stuff to do with me, realized that, hey, building Legos together is something you can do. And so I got into like the knights and the castle stuff, and I actually still have all that. My 6-year-old daughter's been trying to put that stuff together with the horses and the knights and the castles. And my mom and I would, like, every year or so, we would break everything down, and like we would rebuild it together and spend some time. And it was just sort of like a bonding thing with my mom. She liked doing it with me. Because I played sports. So I did all the sports and stuff with my dad, and it just seemed like it was like I think it was kind of a common connection with her. And then, it kind of really went away. I didn't really do a whole lot of, model building or anything like that through most of my life. And then when my kids were born, I think I was telling Dave, I mean, I still had all my Legos at my parents' house, just like, they had Star Wars up in the attic. I'm like, oh, I'll go get my Star Wars. And we'll go get my Legos. And I brought my Legos. My parents live in West Palm, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida now. And I brought them up, and my 3-year-old was playing with them, and she knew I like Star Wars. And one day for Father's Day, she bought me, I say she bought me, they got me a couple little Star Wars microfighters, and I'm like, oh, these are cool. And I'm like, oh, this is neat. I remember doing that. This is fun, And I built them, and of course, as soon as I build them, I'm like, you play with them. And then she breaks them. I'm like, no, you can't play with them anymore. And I'm like, this is so silly. I'm like, I'll just buy my own toys. And really, honestly, as embarrassing as it sounds, that was it. I was also remote. I don't know if you want me to go into this now, but I worked from home, and I was basically sitting around the house and, like, on conference calls and kind of busy. And my wife's a psychologist, and she was like, she'd have a coloring book, and she gets like adult coloring books, and would color in all the fancy little patterns, and it was just sort of like therapy, right? Like, just relaxing, and you're accomplishing something, and it's busy work, but you're kind of getting your mind, juices flowing, but at the same time relaxing. I'm like, well, I can do that with Legos. And so I started, picking up Legos, and while I'm on the conference calls, I'm building this ship. And then it became you buy everything that was available at Target and Walmart, that because they retire everything. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I got to wait. And then somebody told me about Bricklink. And that's the segue into the next chapter of my descent into Lego madness.
So
but Bricklink-
Bricklink, yes. This is basically an ultimate buying and selling spot for people.
It's an international exchange website for Legos exclusively. You can buy literally, I mean, you could order, suppose, I mean, I don't know if you remember like the little Lego sets, they had little flowers, and there was basically 3 posts, and each post had like a little petal. Like you could order a pink petal, like from somebody in Amsterdam for 2 cents on the said site. Or you can find somebody that built some 20,000 piece mock Star Destroyer and they're selling it for $12,000, and you can order that there too. I mean, it's literally the market of markets for all things, Star Wars or all things Lego. But I mean, I would imagine a lot of the traffic is Star Wars. That seems to be a pretty big global phenomenon.
I have a lot of websites that are dedicated to Legos that I was shocked to discover. There's Brickopedia, of course, which is like a Wikipedia style resource. I think there are a couple of other seller websites similar to Bricklink. So it's like a big thing. And I thought that it was just, I didn't know that it was that organized, I guess. Like that people could have that option. Like, oh, I have this set, but it's missing 4 bricks. And you can actually get those 4 bricks that are missing from that set potentially and complete your set.
I've ordered, hair pieces. I've ordered literally when I say like a little slope piece, that's a certain color, a little 1x2 slope. I've ordered a bunch of different little things off that. So another thing that's really funny, you talk about it being organized, it's international, which is insane. So like, again, it's the buyer beware. And then you have places like, eBay, where that's where the greedy sellers go, right? Like I've seen stuff that goes up on eBay that costs more than what you could buy it for in the store, that kind of thing, retail right now, but people are crazy. And I guess, not everybody has access to get certain things, who knows? But I think what happened for me is you start looking at everything, and I had a couple white whales, right? I'm like, I was a big Rebels fan, and I'm like, oh man, I really want to get a Ghost. And then I started looking at the prices of Ghosts, and this is before I really started collecting, and I'm like, I'm never gonna pay that much money for one stupid Lego set. And then you're like, I could get 4 Lego sets for that same price. So you buy those 4 Lego sets, and then you're like, well, shoot. Now I've spent that much money. I could get, maybe something half that price sounds good. And then next thing you know, you're justifying, well, man, it's only 2 hours worth of work. I mean, like it's only cost me 2 hours.
I want you to know you're not alone, because it's like I'm not good at saving my money at all. And I saved money to go to Celebration 2 in Indianapolis, and packed away all my gig money and all my lesson money and stuff. I just saved and paid to go to Celebration. And I came back, and my wife and I were on a walk, and I said, I was really impressed that I saved all this money. I said, I think I want to save up for my Stormtrooper armor. And she said, it's your money. And then she quickly went, but you could. And I was like, nope, too late.
To get permission, can't take it back. Yeah. So actually, telling a story. So my sister-in-law, my baby brother's wife, she's been furloughed, but she was one of the managers at the Lego store that opened here in New Orleans a few years ago, and she used to tell us the story of the serious Lego collectors showing up and like dropping $1,200. They're like, oh yeah, let me get the Millennium Falcon, let me get the Bugatti Veyron. And they didn't just want it in the box and open, they wanted it in the shipping box. Yes. They wanted it as untouched by other human hands as physically possible. And she tells me the story of this one guy who showed up, and it's like telling her and he's picking up the Millennium Falcon, he's picking up the Bugatti Veyron, and his girlfriend is just arms crossed, cannot believe he's dropping that much. And he just decided, okay, on top of that, we're just going to grab this set, this, and this. I think she says, oh, he dropped something like $1,800. And I just went, I cannot believe you can spend that much on Legos. And then I realized, no,
yeah,
you
you can.
can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. It's particularly like Lego Star Wars. That's like the biggest sets that they have right now between the Millennium Falcon and the Star Destroyer.
Yeah, and Lego, like I said, with the licensing, Lego's expensive probably for like what you get anyway. But with the DC and the Star Wars, you're talking about whatever you normally would pay. It's probably another 30% premium markup just because it says Star Wars on it. So, and that gets into the whole idea of like what's value, what's good, what what makes a good set, what makes something worth buying.
See, and that's kind of interesting because first of all, I was taught before you guys got on the call, Chuck and I were talking, and I said, and I've said it before on the podcast, that Lego and Star Wars was like the two great tastes that taste great together. It was like a perfect marriage. But of course, I wonder. This is not on list of questions, Dave, but I'm just going to throw this out. So I love the Lego architecture, sets. I love the Star Wars sets, obviously. But I also remember my brother and I in like the late 70s with our Lego sets, figuring out a way to make Darth Vader's TIE fighter, or figuring out a way to make an X-Wing with just the bricks that we had. We didn't have instructions. It wasn't designed by somebody. I don't know. Do you think that those sets that are already designed and you just have to follow the instructions, does it hinder the creativity of people who might want to use Legos for I don't know, does it take away from the creative aspect, or what do you think?
If you're asking me, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because like I think for a while, as I was starting my collection, or when I was starting to collect the Star Wars stuff, I was building a lot of that stuff on my own. I felt kind of weird, like, kind of sitting up in this, like, I have like a guest room, all my guitars and like my music room, whatever like that, and I would sit there and I would build like a Darth Vader castle, or I would build some cool ship, based on technique with the bricks that you had. I was telling Dave that a lot of the older sets, like the first generation Star Wars sets, I could build most of them with just the bricks that I had, because they didn't create a lot of special pieces. There weren't a lot of special stuff. So I enjoy that. Like I said, but for me, the creativity comes in, and I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say this. I mod and fix like what I consider the imperfections on some of the sets. Like I got the U-wing from Rogue One, and I'm like, I didn't like the way the doors open. It didn't make sense, because like you couldn't store any weapons. So I changed it. I fixed it and I played with it. Like that was me playing with it, right? That's the creativity piece that I think you're getting at is, oh, I want my Millennium Falcon to have a drop down ramp. Well, you got to do some pretty clever, and you have to have a lot of bricks to be able to make up for it, right? And then and kind of play with it. No, I enjoy that part as well. But once you start buying the sets and the beauty of them, and like again appreciating the architecture and appreciating how unbelievably cool the engineering that goes into making them, I get a lot of enjoyment out of just like, oh, where is this going? Oh, that's such a cool technique. And then you go and get your other Lego sets and you're building with your kid, and you realize that you're using some of the same techniques to like build her something that she wants, that she thinks is cool, kind of thing. So
one of the things that I didn't realize was that the Lego Star Wars license didn't start until 1999.
Well,
It's the Phantom Menace. And it just feels like it's so ubiquitous. It almost feels like it's just sort of been around forever. Like Lego Star Wars, like Aaron said, it's this natural marriage, this beautiful marriage. It feels like something that should have existed forever. And it feels like Star Wars itself, in a way. Like Star Wars should have been around forever. And it's hard to recall a time when that wasn't the case. And so like the very first set was Phantom Menace set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Darth Maul's Sith infiltrator, right?
Yeah. Oh, so you got that one, and then here, that's funny, you pull that up, Aaron, and it's like, well, this is the third generation one that they finally made, that they made. And it's like, oh, so now they're sloped pieces and things look, slick and neat, and it's funny like how they go from very brick based, like almost like Minecraft, style, to very clever and smooth. I think that's really insightful too, Dave. I think about that too. I can't imagine that Star Wars didn't exist until I was 19 years old. That's crazy. Like Star Wars Legos. That's just weird. Because it feels like, oh, I've always had these. It's just weird.
Well, it's interesting. I just took a look at eBay right quick when you mentioned. I found episode 1, Sebulba and Anakin's pod racers in the box, sealed, $105. Because it's not around anymore. And I'm pretty sure that could go up in price if somebody really wanted it.
It's new in a box for 105. Is that the current bid? Because like that seems actually, kind of low.
I think that was just like the starting bid. So I'm pretty sure they're expecting that's going to go up in price. But it's an interesting thing because you're right. You would expect that something as ubiquitous as Star Wars would have meshed with Legos, but it takes the prequels. It takes episode 1 to make that marriage happen.
Well, they had yellow-faced, remember like the Lego people were like yellow-faced characters, right? And they had the original Star Wars, like the 99 I don't think they had the flesh tones actually until like almost 2003. So for like the first 4 or 5 years, you had Count Dooku with a yellow face, or or Anakin with a yellow face, or what, which is really funny. And then they started making the flesh tones, and then with the Clone Wars when it came out, like they started messing with it, make them look a little bit more universe realistic to the cartoon or to that. And now, some of the characters that come out, are very detailed. Like the printing and everything on them is very, very detailed. Where you can look at a character and be like, oh, that's. The Han Solo that comes with the Millennium Falcon from Force Awakens. It looks like. It looks like Lego Harrison Ford, but the smirk is just right and the hair is just right, and it really emotes that sort of like connection to it. So. Yeah, I definitely. I was thinking a little bit more about even talking about the creativity. It's like there's the swooshability and playing with them. I've obviously at 39 years old kind of outgrown that. But I'm not going to lie. The minute you finish building them, as I build them downstairs and I carry them upstairs, I'm swooshing them up the stairs until I put them on the shelf or whatever kind of thing like that. And they're just really neat. But for me, I really look forward, and I justify what I have is like I can't wait for my kids to get older and watch them play with them. Watch their imaginations go. Let them. I was telling Aaron before we got online, like the rule. I tell my kids, like they'll knock something over or break a Lego, and I'm like, "What's the rule?" And it's like, "Oh, Legos can always be put back together." And it's like, really, if you think about it, it's like one of the few toys that a kid can drop, and it can break into 1,000 pieces, and all it's going to take is this time to, not glue. Just time, and they got another chance to put it back together and play with it some more. It's just kind of a cool, almost kid-proof type of toy. Then I can't wait for them to get a little bit older to be able to play with them and watch them enjoy, these the way I enjoyed my Kenner toys when I was a kid, kind of thing.
So 2 questions, kind of related. 1, what is your favorite set that you have?
Ooh.
And 2, is there anything that they have not yet designed that you wish they would design?
Yes. So my favorite. So I told you, I said the Ghost was the white whale that kind of started it, and then after finding the Ghost and getting that, then the next white whale became the Venator class cruiser, which I got here. I would, if I had to guess, I would probably say my Venator is my favorite. I just got the Tantive and put that together. So I like that. But if you made me choose, I would say the Ghost is still probably my favorite because it was like pretty much what made me want to do this. And then obviously this one, and then the Tidarian shuttle. It's just gorgeous. It's just perfect, and it's wonderful, and I love I'm a sucker for the shuttles, so I have most of them. I've got the Krennic shuttle and the Tidarian shuttle and the Rebel attack shuttle and a couple other different shuttles. I've got troop landers and that stuff. That's where I'm at. But in terms of what they need to build, I'm really, really hoping the things that I don't have that I won't buy because they're just too ungodly expensive. And I know that, hang on, let me switch you back around. They're too ungodly expensive, and I know that they'll eventually recreate them. I don't have a Republic gunship. I see yours over your shoulder back there. They're going to do a Republic gunship next year. It was voted on by the fans.
I actually
to
have
do
I have the Lego one as well. It's back there further. So
they're going to do a UCS or a $200 UCS Republic gunship set for probably for May the 4th next year, which is I'll probably get that when it comes out. But I'm really, really interested to see, they've already announced it. The Razor Crest for Mandalorian will come out in September, and I've already pre-ordered that. So I know
That's going to be a question. I was going to ask, hey, have you pre-ordered the Razor Crest?
Oh yeah. The day, the second that it came out, I pre-ordered it. I'm really curious. I'm really kind of hoping that they build. I said I'm a sucker for the shuttles. I'm really looking forward to see if they build like the Bad Batch shuttle from the Season of Rebels. I think that would be really cool. And we haven't really kind of talked about it. The way Lego gets you is like they'll release things and they don't put all the necessary minifigures that go with the set, right? Like the Knights of Ren, the Night Buzzard, which isn't even named in the Revenge of the Rise of Skywalker, but the black ship that the Knights of Ren are on, that's being released this summer, and it's coming with 2 Knights of Ren. Now, I happen to have Kylo Ren's new shuttle, and I happen to have the other sets that have it, so I'll have all the Knights of Ren. But you don't get the only way you can sort of like collect, complete your set or complete the thing is to, buy all of them. I mean, a lot of toys are notorious for being toy manufacturers are notorious for doing that, but it's something that I'm looking forward to. So, hopefully they'll do, like I said, the Bad Batch shuttle. I think that would be really, really cool.
So we have to acknowledge, though, at this point, maybe that there are people who have taken collecting Star Wars Lego much further than you have.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on what's out there? People that have you beat? Any jealousy on your part? What do you think what makes a good collection? Maybe.
So I thought I had at this point. Now I actually just today from Germany ordered Malevolence, which is like the Republic cruiser or the Republic cruiser that Chancellor Palpatine's on in Revenge of the Sith, right? Like, or it's it's actually what General Grievous's ship, right? So I just ordered that. It's coming from Germany. It'll be here like next week, right? So I thought I had a really big collection. And we talk about Bricklink. There's a place called Brickset, which is essentially a database where you can enter all the sets that you have, and it calculates all the numbers of pieces and stuff. So you asked before, like, how do I know how many pieces I have? Well, I can type in all the different sets. Like, I take all my booklets and I can even the old stuff, and I can like type it all in, and I know what I have, and it'll tell me literally to the piece count how many pieces I have and whatever. Ballpark, just curious. Like I said, I have more than 125 sets. I have no idea how much I know how much I have, and I'm saying like it's a lot. Ballpark in the world, where do you think my collection would rank? Now, mind you, I don't have doubles of anything. I have I basically have like one of almost everything that matters. But ballpark, where do you think my Lego collection ranks?
You're probably, I'll say, in the thousands.
50-something thousand. There's more than 53,000 people that have more Legos than I do. Now, there's no way right as of now, and I've actually written to them, funny enough. I've said, hey, you should be able to filter by Lego theme. I want to know where I rank like with my Star Wars Lego collection, not just Legos in general. But yeah, I'm in the 50. I'm 50,000 in sets. I'm 43,000th in total pieces, which includes like all my all my other pieces. Like, it's unbelievable. And you said what makes a good set? I've seen go on YouTube and ask and see Star Wars Legos collection. People have 20 Republic gunships. They have 10 AT-AT walkers. They have umpteen thousand battle packs of clone troopers, and they have 1,000 of them on sitting on their kitchen table. Like, it's insanity. And you realize that, like, I mean, my retail value, and Bricklink will tell you what the retail value of your collection is, right? Like, the retail value of my collection is like north of $7,000 right now. I could sell it for more. I said, that's what it would cost, like, MSRP at the time kind of thing. But I sit there and I think about it and I'm like, these people must have 30, 40, $50,000 worth of Legos just by the math alone. I mean, if you have, 10, if you have 10 Imperial Star Destroyers right now, an Imperial Star Destroyer on, if you get a good deal, you're still paying 150 for it. That's $1,000 right there. You know what I mean? Like, it just adds up like crazy. I
Do you
I
want to
can't.
do you want to feel a little bit better about yourself? When
Sure.
I lived in Nebraska, the bar that I would go to most frequently, they had it was kind of a mug club type thing,
Mhm.
and it was you would complete a tour. A tour was 110 beers, and after you completed a tour, then you'd get like some sort of prize. And after you got done with 10 tours, then you got your own mug. It's a pewter mug with your name engraved on everything, and and then you get your name on a plaque. And then every time you complete a tour, they give you a new placard, or a little new plate that says what tour you're on. And so we were in one of these bars in Colorado, and some guy had 136 tours. And if you take 136 times 110 beers at about $5-6 a beer, and this dude, it was like $63,000 on beer, so feel good about your Legos.
I do, and you laugh, and it's like I actually talked to my financial planner, and I told him I'm buying all this stuff, and I kind of feel stupid, but then I started sending him, like, and again, beautiful thing about the internet, like Bricklink and Brickset, they give you like the history of everything, all the different sets, what they sell for, all these other things, and he's like kind of looking at the market, and he looks at it, he's like, I mean, to me, he's like, I can't see a reason why you wouldn't be able to sell this for more than what you're paying for it right now, based on even at the used condition. He's like, so it's not like you're totally throwing your money away.
Well,
I'm
but
like, all right, well, that makes me feel better.
So
but here's the thing is that, because obviously, I'm going to be the last person on this podcast to criticize anybody for their collections, because and the reason, we all get kind of, you collect Legos, I have all this Star Wars stuff, we all have our collections that, the cool kids might come down on us. But here's the thing that I always think about, it's like, being an adult, it really does kind of suck. There's a lot of stuff that weighs down on you. And when I get a new Star Wars something, it's keeping that 10-year-old, inside of me, 7-year-old alive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people let that youthfulness. And my grandmother always said, "You're only as old as you allow yourself to be." It's the Peter Pan thing. You can get old, but you don't have to grow up. And I see people just get beaten down by, just the things, just life. But then when you find out their nerddom, the that thing that makes them smile. It might be a movie, it might be a book, it might be, it's Star Wars, it's whatever. So just having, it's kind of like your room that we're seeing here. This is an audio podcast, so nobody else is seeing this, but it's like my room. I come into my room and it's surrounded by Star Wars stuff, and it just makes me go, it makes me happy. It's just,
Yeah.
Every place else in my house makes me happy as well, but this is just one of those things where it's just, you get kind of lost. So
That's really good to hear. It's comforting to hear you say that, and it makes me feel, vindicated. But again, like I said, my wife's a psychologist, and she gets it, and I do. I almost at least once a day, I'll walk in this room, I see all my guitar. I was a former musician too, right? So like I see all my guitars, and I look at my collection, and it just puts a smile on my face. I just check in on it, like, how you guys doing? Hey, it's great. It's like a pet that you don't have to feed. It's you can still love it. Yeah, it does, and it's made me, I really genuinely think it's made me a happier person in the last few years of my life, just being able to have something silly and irreverent that it's fun, and it makes me feel good, and it's exciting.
I have to say, you said you work remotely. I as well. I actually have a co-working place downtown New Orleans, but I haven't been going to it since we've been in,
Quarantineville.
quarantine, whatever. so, I've been working in my Star Wars room, and it really has been this. It makes me get through my day a little bit better, because as I'm working on stuff, I can just look over and see R2D2, and it's just kind of like, that's kind of nice, you know.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I've been monopolizing things here, Dave.
Oh,
Fredo,
you've been doing all right. Maybe we do some quick fire questions here, just so that people. The way I kind of envision this is like, let's say somebody's listening to the podcast and they're thinking, "Oh, I'd like to get started with this. This is something I'd like to do," because I love hearing you guys talk about nostalgia and how it can make you feel good. And so it's like, maybe I want to get started. Well, how would somebody get started? You mentioned a couple of the online resources. Um, there's obviously a lot of different kinds of sets, right? It's not just ships.
Yes, so I think I think it's a great question, Dave. I think some people like to, do you want something to look at, or do you want something to play with? And you say and we're getting back to that, like what makes a good collection, what's a good way to start a collection, and your budget obviously matters too, right? But sometimes people are just like, I really like this scene from a movie, or I really like these characters. So buying, Yoda's hut with like Luke and Yoda, Luke in a tank top, Lego Luke in a tank top and Yoda, and it's going to sit on my shelf and it's going to make me think of Empire Strikes Back and makes me happy. Hey, that's an easy way to spend $30. Some other people say, oh, I'm a little bit more adult. I want something, I would like to put something on like a shelf or on like a mantle. And, they have all these UCS sets or things that are at least close to UCS. UCS, sorry, meaning Ultimate Collector Series. They realize that like not even the Legos are expensive, and they know kids aren't the only ones buying them. They decided, oh, we're really going to like screw over the adults, and we're going to create these like really, highly detailed, super expensive sets. Like you mentioned before when we started, like the Millennium Falcon that's $700 or like $700, or that Imperial Star Destroyer that's like $800, that kind of thing. But they're not all that crazy expensive. The one that's coming out on Friday on tomorrow is the A-Wing. The A-Wing's $200, and they're not, they're like minifigure scale or pretty close to it, meaning you don't, they're bigger. You're not going to pick them up and swoosh them around in your hand. But they're really detailed. They usually come with little plaques and some information, and those are really nice things to have, I think, like as conversation pieces. And I mean, if I could do it all over again, and I've even talked about this there's some people on Twitter that we have like a little Lego, like a little Lego group that we chat about, Star Wars Lego group we chat about. And I'm like, I've debated selling all my stuff and just buying like the UCS sets. Like I could trade all my stuff in and just have 10 UCS sets, and that's all I keep. And since I'm not really playing them, it'd be something nice to like look at, and that would be cool. I think you got to decide, do you want to, do you like ships, or do you like characters? Do you like dioramas? Does that interest you? Or do you like, I don't like I have them. I have speeders and I have walkers and all that stuff. That's not as cool as like a ship that you can just pick up and swoosh around, that has a cockpit that that you give to your kid, and the kid can run around the room with and swoosh and shoot the missiles. Like, to me, that's fun stuff. But what I would suggest doing is go to a Lego store. Don't start on eBay, because again, we haven't really talked about it, but like if you don't know what you're buying and you don't know what things are, like you can go to Bricklink, and that gives you a good idea of what things are selling for. But again, what something sells for in Germany is different than what something sells for in America, and there's all sorts of conversions, and you have to decide if it's worth it or not. But go to a Lego store that has like all the latest stuff, or a Target or Walmart works as well, and take a look around. And I think you pick something that is meaningful to you, and then that speaks to you, and you play. You go home and you build it, and if you think it's fun, then you say, okay, what else is out there? But I would not go jumping into buying used sets from Denmark. I've done that. I have somebody right now that ordered something very expensive, and not me. It's actually a friend of mine. Ordered something very expensive. It got delivered to him, and it's not Lego. It's some knockoff, whatever. And like, he's obviously reported to Bricklink, but he's still out the $700. He's kind of upset, and it happens. And then you got to, and so for me, and as well, like I like to collect things that are complete. I think my OCE takes over, and I'm like, well, I have this much, I might as well get the next one. And I'm already, the money's already been spent for the stuff that's going to be released this summer. But I've been a little bit more judicious in that I don't want the play sets anymore. I don't want the speeders or the bikes or that stuff just doesn't interest me, because like I don't play with it. It's not swooshable, and I don't display it that way. Like it's just, I like ships, capital ships, gun fighter ships, whatever. I like the ships. And so I think it's really what excites you. My son loves the AT-AT Walker. I know you guys talk about it. Is it an AT-AT or AT-AT? I say AT-AT, he'll say AT-AT, and I'm proud of him. I guess all these people say like that's a good thing to do. He loves it, but it's not very stable. It's hard for him to play with. But that's his absolute favorite thing. He wants to go to dad's room and take out a ship, and he wants to play with the AT-AT. That's the thing that really speaks to him. So, see what's out there, and don't be afraid. And I plug myself. I think I'm like, I don't even know my Twitter handle. I think it's like Dr. Jack Snow or something like that. We can fill that in later. Talk to somebody that collects, and like they'll know. There's a couple people on in our little Twitter sphere, like FSU Twitter friends of mine, whatever, that I've never met, that I've talked to, and I've gone on eBay or I've gone on Bricklink and found that they say I really want to start a destroyer, and I shopped for one, and like he's like, he almost bought one for $300 on eBay, and I found the exact same condition, complete set, the whole thing, and he paid like $144 for it. And he's thrilled, and he gets it, and that's what he wants. So reach out to people that collect. There is a really big community out there, and there's plenty of YouTube vloggers and people that talk about it and review the sets. If you're not sure if you want it, M&R Productions is a website that he literally everything that comes out, he opens it up, builds it, and like walks you through and gives you what he thinks about it, tells you what he thinks about it, and you get to see it in action. And he'll do comparison videos, like Aaron showed the Sith Infiltrator, and they have 3 different models of that. He'll do a video that has all 3 of the models and talks about the pros and cons. And like, are you a purist and you want the one from like, early 2000s, or do you want the one that was from, 2013? And it's slick and neat. And there's plenty of resources like, digital media out there that'll kind of like walk you through what's there. I mean, I don't need all 3 of them, and I won't collect all 3 of them. I pick the one I want, just sort of like with the Imperial shuttle. There's 3 different Imperial shuttles. I knew which one I wanted, and I got 75055. That's the one I know that I wanted. It's that sort of thing. So,
what makes you decide what you want to pick? Like,
what's that?
What makes you decide which one of the 3 that you want to pick? So, like, what makes a good model for you?
For what makes a good model for me is the playability. Even though I don't play with them, the playability is interesting. So like, say for the Tanev, I was in a group. The Tanev was actually a gift from some friends. But the question was, did I want the one that just came out last year on May the 4th, or do I want the one that came out, and I think it's 2003? And I went back and forth, and they were going to buy me, potentially were going to buy me like a used one or whatever of the old ones. And the old one, the cockpit fuselage or whatever at the front opens up like on a hinge. And I'm like, oh, that's so neat. Instead of like the little cones popping off the side on the new one. But the new one has a lot of other, greebling and detail, and it's a much better, newer model. It's got a handle. It's just nicer and cleaner, right? And I ended up going with that one, and I was really pleased, like, when that was the one that they gave me and everything like that, and it was really awesome. But to your point about the Infiltrator, I knew I wanted the one that opened up in the back, because it looked really cool the way like it opens up and Darth Maul can sit in there and it can close, and then all the little it has the scooter, the little Darth Maul speeder looked really neat. I'm like, oh, I really like that. I liked how it integrated with the set. I'm like, that's a much cooler set to me than say one of the old ones. It's hard to say. Typically, I've leaned towards. I don't think I've gone back further than 2007 for any of the stuff that I have. But then you go back from 99 to 2006. I take that back. There might be a couple TIE fighters I have that are older. Oh, that's the thing. I also collect all the TIE fighters. That's important. The only thing that I definitely buy is all the TIE fighters, because I have that's my thing. That's my jam. But I really think it just kind of comes down to I don't have any of the old ones. I just don't think it's worth, especially at this point, it's not worth spending the money for something that really kind of looks ugly. If there's no other way, I don't need to have the collection that says it's complete. I want the collection that kind of like looks cool, and some of that old stuff just isn't something that I'm really interested in, for me anyway.
So I'm a complete neophyte about this. May the 4th is coming up. Is that a big sales event for Lego or not?
Yeah, they have deals, and right now, if you go to the Lego store, and Lego does some really cool stuff, and they've gone away from it the last couple of years with like how cool it is. They used to have like Lego VIP points and stuff like that. But right now, if you get double points for buying anything from the Lego store during the May the 4th, basically the 1st to the 4th event, and then it starts tomorrow actually. And then if you spend 75, you'll get like some special set. Historically, we haven't really even talked about this. Historically, they used to give away special limited edition minifigures. And I don't know if you guys are EU people or not, and like you know who Darth Revan is. Like
Yes.
there's a Darth Revan polybag that came out that was given out a number of years ago. It's the only Darth Revan that exists. And if you want to buy it now, you go on Bricklink, you're going to pay $75 to $100 for it, for a stupid Lego minifigure. But that's what it costs. They don't. So, but what they've been doing the last few years for Force Fridays and then May the 4th is they have these like little mini dioramas that you get. You spend $75, you get this limited edition little mini diorama. It's kind of similar to the stuff that you would get if you went to a con and they give out a handout. You know, they hand out like special like the door prizes or whatever for attending Star Wars Con this or Lego Con that. And it's cool, but I mean, I think there is like the sets are like up to 20% off. I mean, I don't work for Lego. I don't know the details. And honestly, and to be completely candid, there's nothing I need because I already have everything that's out. I'm waiting like on pins and needles for the stuff to come out in late spring and summer. There's nothing that even came out in this last release last week that I'm even interested in, unfortunately. They started doing these like head busts. So they got like a Stormtrooper, a Boba Fett, and I mean, there's a part of me that's just like the part of me that wants to sell everything and just have the UCS sets. It seems more dignified to say, oh, I'll have all the busts and I'll have the UCS sets, but it's just not something I'm interested in, and I'm not going to go down that road. But if you haven't pre-ordered your Mandalorian Razor Crest, that's a really good time to do it tomorrow. I don't know if you get a deal on it, but you'll at least get the points, and you'll get the what do you call it? The little special edition like freebie. And the points are cool. That's the other thing I'd say. Like as you buy stuff from the Lego store, you get points, and then you can get access to special limited edition things as well. Like that you can't. Again, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, hey, here's Admiral Veers or what." I mean, I don't know what, and they'll say, "Oh, it costs 10,000 Lego points," and there's not a lot of people that have 10,000 Lego points, so that makes it a pretty rare thing to get your hands on.
So a couple of things right quick. Yeah, they're doing double VIP points on Lego Star Wars through the May the 4th sale. So if you want the VIP points, you get double. Yeah, they're giving the little Death Star 2. It's a free exclusive Death Star 2 battle mini set on purchases of like $75 or more. So spend as much amount, they throw in another little setting for you.
Yeah, that A-Wing looks really pretty cool too.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, the A-Wing's awesome. But like I said, I don't have any UCS sets. Oh, the Tantive isn't technically a UCS set, and I just can't do it because my other A-Wings are normal size. Like it'll look weird. Like it'll just look weird on my shelf. Like go big or go home, and I'm not ready to go big yet, even though I've gone big for quantity.
Although I will say, Aaron, I mean that Stormtrooper helmet set, that looks cool. That looks like it needs to be in your room.
I think the TIE Pilot set is. Have you seen the pilot is really dope.
See, here's the interesting thing about collecting, though, and maybe Chuck, it'd be interesting to see your take on this, because when Fredo, you said that that you should get the Lego Stormtrooper helmet. It's one of those things that, like my students when I was teaching, they knew I was a big Star Wars fan. They knew I collected stuff, and so anything Star Wars they found, they would like, here's some Star Wars stuff. It's like, that's not what it's very similar to, I'm very weird. If any of you were to say, Aaron, you need to read this book, you'll like it, there is probably a hair of a chance that I am going to read that book. For me, it has to be, I'm interested in that. I want to go buy that book. I want to go check that book out or whatever. It has to be from me to go get that book and to read it. So, collecting, it's not like, hey, Chuck likes Legos, I'm going to give him Lego stuff. Are you thrilled if somebody just gives you Legos, or is it like, I'd rather go pick out my own Legos. Thank you.
Oh, me? If you're
Yeah.
asking, no, I'm definitely. Oh no, it's definitely. I want to pick out. Like I said, we had a little friend group where we all kind of.
No,
I don't
I'm
know
sorry.
what
I'm
it's
sorry. I'm
called.
sorry. That being said, all of my students who are listening to this, probably all one of you, I'm really thrilled, that you guys, it's because it's very nice, especially when people love you and they realize that, hey, you like this thing. So I'm not saying that any Legos you've gotten as a present is a bad present. But that being said, as a collector, it's not like you collect everything Lego. It's you have your,
No,
so go ahead.
No, I think there's an emotional attachment. It's like and again, like I said, it started out with a few for me, like, and this is exactly to your point. It started out like I wanted this, and then you get this, you're like, well, that's kind of cool too, and you're like, oh, well, I'll never get that. Then you get it, then you're like, well, if I got that, I want to get that. It has to mean something to you, and I completely understand that. If you just started sending me Lego sets, I would feel very appreciative, but it's sort of like I tell my wife I'm the hardest person to buy for in the world. I'm like, if I wanted it, I would have already bought it. Like, it's so hard to surprise. It's like you're better off just asking me, because if I really want it, there's nothing stopping me from getting it. So the chances of you finding something that I want that I didn't know I wanted is probably pretty low. But maybe that sounds crazy. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned you had a white whale, which was the ghost. Do you have a new white whale?
Before today was the Malevolence, but I found a guy in Germany and I contacted him and I was like if you can look up it's 9515. I know Fredo was like on eBay or whatever earlier. Like, if you look up Lego 9515, you tell me what they're going for on there. Like, probably like mid 300s, 400s.
Lego 9515, Lego Star Wars Malevolent Spaceship. If you put a bid, $131.99. If you want to buy it now, the cheapest is $200. Although, if you do the more realistic buy it now, $448, $454, $440, kind of a steal at $360. So
So I
that's
found
what you
one.
go for.
So I found one in Germany for with the euro conversion for 162.
That's pretty good compared to
Right,
what eBay was selling.
but that's where you're at, right? So you say, like, there's no way I'm ever going to spend $400 on a Lego set, and I haven't done that yet. And there's no way I would do that. But again, Bricklink, it's wonderful. Stay away from Russia, kids. Don't buy anything from Russia, China, or Indonesia. Those are the places you don't buy this stuff from. But typically, Canada. I've had. You don't know if you don't know this about me. Like, I have a PhD in geography, and so it's funny. Like, I was a geography professor for a little while, and like that's the other thing that I find humorous in this is that I've ordered stuff I've got from the Netherlands, from Canada. I think at this point I've gotten them from 14 different countries. I've got Lego sets delivered from 14 different countries. I got something from Australia the other day, and it had like these really cute koala stamps on it. And I showed my 6-year-old. I'm like, how cool is that? Dad got a letter from Australia with little baby koala stamps. But that's part of the white whale thing, right? So I wanted the ghost, and I found a brand new ghost. It was all brand new pieces, but the person had gone in and taken all the minifigures out of it. So Zeb Aurelius is, if you look at U.S. markets, they want 65, $70 for him. And I'm like, I would never pay that, but I got the ghost, and I had I ordered a Hera separate. She was only a couple dollars then, and I found a guy in Australia that would sell me a Zeb for like $20, and so I bought it. It took me 3 weeks to get it, and it finally came, and I was happy. And I put Zeb in the ghost, and it's fine. And now that set is like complete. And I mean, I'm a dork. I mean, if you guys can see over here, I got this big bag, this big box of bags. All the sets, they all come with extra pieces, right? So I take all the manuals and all the extra pieces and I put them in Ziploc bags and I write I write what they are and I have them. So if I do want to sell them, I'm selling a complete set with all the stuff, that kind of thing. And there's sort of like some integrity there to what I'm getting. So the Malevolence, Dave, was kind of one of the whales. I think the thing that everybody wants, the single most non-UCS expensive set that exists is the Republic Dropship, and it's it's basically a combination of the Republic attack cruiser and an ATTE, and they're together, and it's literally, it's the drop ship. Like, you remember in Attack of the Clones, like as they're on the ground, you see them zoom in and it just drops the ATT on the ground and the ATTE starts walking around or whatever and it flies off. I'm not kidding. If you can find one, a legitimate one, for less than $1,000, you've done something with your life. So that's the white whale of white whales. But even then, I'm not even sure I would want it, because, like I said, I'm not buying any more walkers. I'm not buying any more speeders. But there is a ship attached to it, so like I'm kind of torn a little bit.
The loophole, yeah.
And in some ways, that's the genius of Lego. It's a lot similar to what Disney used to do and does still, is that they make a certain number, and when they tell you, that's it, no more, that's it, no more, so it only increases the demand for, whether it's builders, collectors, whoever, to go and get them.
It does.
You're like, you either get this now, or you go chase them down, years later, spend 3 times as much. So good business model.
It's crazy. Like my buddy and I, Mike, we've talked about it, and I started to build the spreadsheet, and I'm going to do that, and I'll report back to you guys. I'll email you back once it's finally done. Like, I know what Bricklink or Brickset says my retail value is. I'm going to go and look at average price sold in the last 6 months for all my stuff, and we'll see what it actually comes back and says that it's worth on the secondary market, because it may, I want a pool. My wife wants a pool, and I'm like, maybe, no. But no, one of my goals is actually is to break them down and rebuild them here. I think that's my next thing I'm going to do. Is that'll be my next project. I'll start breaking them down, and then, my wife and I sit there and watch TV, and I'll just sit there and noodle and build them, or if I'm on a phone call, I'll just do it, because that's the fun for me. Once they sit on the shelf, it's nice to look at, but I like to build it.
And I'll be honest, I've bought a few Lego sets here and there during this quarantine time, because it's a very passive, very almost Zen-like hobby. You'll just chill out. You put the TV on the background or put some music, and you just kind of follow the booklet, or you put the piece together, and it can just, whether it's depending how big it is, you can spend an hour or a few hours just building something. At the end of it, hey, you got something built. But more than anything, it's a good way to decompress.
It is. And what's really funny is my friends don't get it. Some of my friends are just getting into it. Like, I built that Tantive. I watched Tiger King. I built the Tantive in less than 5 episodes of 5. I watched the finale of Tiger King. I'd already finished it. I started literally. I opened the first bag just as the credits rolled on the first episode. So I'm like, oh, that was sub 5. Even with distractions of watching TV, it was sub 5 hours. My other buddy, who's a pretty good Lego builder, took him 13 and a half hours to build it. So because I'm one of those people that I start anticipating what the next piece is going to go, or as I'm searching for a piece, I'm looking on the book for the next piece. It's a challenge for me as well to sort of keep my mind. There's a lot of again, my wife. That's why my wife kind of accepts what I do. She understands that there's a good value in terms of the way your brain's working and doing it, and keeping the juices flowing and stuff like that. I think there's worse habits and addictions to have, other than playing with some plastic bricks from.
That's a very good point. I think it's a very, very good point. I've always said with my own collections, hey, I could gamble,
Yeah.
So
you talk about a guy drinking beer. At least you have something to show for it, other than a piece of metal on a plaque that.
It's a really nice mug, though. Let me tell you. Well, cool.
Well,
This has been awesome.
Now, I was just gonna say, just as long as you're not having to knock down the side of your house and building a whole new wing to house it all, you're okay.
I kept them in boxes for like the first couple years, and like literally just in the last year, the last 6 months, I ordered some shelves, and I'm like, honey, she's like, oh, put them up, and I'm like, there's too many, and she's like, well, how many could there be? And then she's like, holy crap, what have you been up to? And like they're actually in a closet. It's weird.
Mhm.
Like I'm proud of my collection, yet it's in a closet. There's no practical space for it. My house is plenty big, but like this is like the sort of little man cave, guest room, music room, whatever. So it seems like the appropriate place for it. I did have a question for you guys, and that would be, what when you think of ships, or you think of like vehicles in like the Star Wars universe, like what what are your favorites? I mean, not counting Millennium Falcon and not counting like an AT-AT, like not the big stuff. Like what is like what when you think of Star Wars, you think of cool ships. Like what are the really cool things that interest you guys?
Slave One,
The X-wing.
Boba Fett ship. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of those. You saw that? I got that.
yeah.
It's cool. I mean, that was a lot of fun. I love that too. Dave, what's your favorite Star Wars vehicle ship?
I like the Jedi fighters from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, those are dope.
I like those a lot, and the earlier prototypes of those from Attack of the Clones that would connect with the
To
big
the-
ring,
Right.
the
with
big ring thing.
What bothered
The
me
warp
about
drive.
what bothered me about those Jedi starfighters, and it's like I can pull out the toy. It's like there's no way that an R2 unit fits
On the
in the
wing.
wing of that thing.
Yeah.
There's no way, and that just has always bothered me since episode 2. Here's the other thing. So it's not, but what's always bugged me is that how, and this is in episode, it's in the sequel trilogy when BB-8 gets into the X-wing, because this thing comes from above and goes through the X-wing and grabs BB-8 by the head and pulls him up.
Mhm.
Where's that arm thing? When he gets
It's
to the
a
top,
back-
you see him. No, it's an arm thing that grabs him by the head and pulls him up. Then when he gets up to the top, there's no arm thing. So sorry, those are the things I noticed. Yeah, I know we got to throw some of these things out the window, but so
Well, you know what? Maybe it's like one of those collapsible like measuring cups.
you're
Like
thinking.
That's what
It
I
just
do.
folds into itself and back into the back of the ship. But
Yeah,
I mean,
something
how
like
else are they going to get BB-8 into the X-wing?
that. Exactly.
I mean, the X, in A New Hope and Empire, somebody had to come with a
why,
arm, put R2 into the X-wing.
that's why I love what Rebels did. That's like, oh, let's just make Chopper have a
Jetpack.
have a jetpack that he can just launch himself up on top of there. Yeah. So, well, hey,
Well,
cool. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'll just say one last thing. We pretty much ask everybody this question who comes on. Which is your favorite movie in the saga?
I am not ashamed to say it, and I alluded to it earlier. I really think Return of the Jedi is like probably the most impactful, memorable, just because of how old I was, and then like obviously, I think that was my favorite, and it was my favorite. I understand that it's not the best movie, but I will argue, and this is maybe controversial, I think the first 35 minutes of The Force Awakens is the best Star Wars. Just the first 35 minutes, basically, just until as soon as she flies away, as soon as she steals the Falcon and is off the planet, like up to that point, I think it's perfect. I literally was like in the movie theater with tears in my eyes when it came out, going, "Oh my God, that was the most perfect 35 minutes of Star Wars." And then it gets messy, and it is what it is. But that captured everything. It was all I wanted. If the minute she left Jakku, if the movie ended, I would have walked out and said that was it. I would have been great. I think that was the best 35 minutes of Star Wars. But I think Return of the Jedi is my favorite.
That's kind of a fun question, though, for the group. What are the best 30 minutes of Star Wars in the saga? Might be
Mm.
something worth thinking about.
That's,
Yeah, we're gonna have to think
a whole
about
other
that.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll have to think about that because that could get quite contentious.
Well, hey, it is getting really late in Florida, and it's getting close to bedtime around here as well. But Chuck, we want to thank you for joining the podcast and telling us about your I don't know how
Lego.
we put it, addiction. I know I always look at my room and I was like, I have a problem, but then I'm like, no, I don't have a problem. So no, it's
There's always somebody else.
but no, I want to thank you for joining us, and this has been awesome. And for everybody else, remember May the 4th on Monday, and that's when everybody will know if you're Catholic, because somebody will say May the 4th, May the 4th be with you, and people will say and also with you, and so how do we all feel though about people trying to say, well, then, the next is, Revenge of the Fifth? I don't like that one. That seemed forced, but don't. But
It's kind of silly.
so
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how much traction it gets. May the 4th has become kind of a big day, and it started kind of small, and now you get people who hate on it. So you made it when people are upset about you existing. So
There you go. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. I love talking Star Wars, and look forward to hearing more podcasts from you guys in the future. Anytime you want to talk about Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, I'm all about that too. Just so you know, that's my jam.
Oh, Fredo's really excited.
Well, yeah, that me, yeah, you and me right here. Yeah,
maybe a future episode. Right on.
All right, brother.
Cool.
You guys have a good one. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one, and stay safe and stay healthy, and may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
And also with you.
There you go. Yeah. And everybody, thanks for this. Has been another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. Don't forget, you can hear us on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Podbean. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Maybe roaming the streets, you might find us. But otherwise, please, if you like what you're hearing, share it out on social media. Let people know we exist, and tell them to listen to the podcast. And other than that, we will see you next week. So everybody say, "Who dat?
Who dat?
Who dat?
McClunky.